before we go any further in the instructions, I wanted to point out again the current running version of my Chartbrew dashboard. That's this screen here, and you can see the URL listed there. And also I have the Heroku account that I had mentioned. So I created this account. You can see the overview here. And I have my JAWS DB MySQL database set up, which is what's running the Chartbrew instance. And also we have the Vercel front end hosted here, and you can see the screenshot of the login, and then what the URL is to get to the front end dashboard application is there. And this domain name here matches what you see here. So they're one and the same. So I just wanted to mention that before we get into the other settings and screens about how to get all this set up. So here's where we left off in the last video. We were taking a look at the code that I downloaded from the Chartbrew GitHub account where I forked it. And so the next thing we need to do is look at setting up our environment variables. And a couple notes here. Since I did clone the repo as I showed on the command line, I didn't run this command here in this window, and I also did not run this second command for creating the JAWS DB on Heroku because I'd done those steps separately. But you could run them from the command line as I'm showing here. So next we have the configuration of the Heroku variables. This screenshot shows here on the right side how to go ahead and do that. You see a button here called Reveal Config Vars, so you need to click into that. And once you do that, you'll be able to do the configuration that's necessary for the Chartbrew dashboard. So this next screen here, I'm showing how we set up our environment variables for this new MySQL database. This is a list of the required variables as per the Chartbrew documentation. And on the right side, you can see where they were created and added into the environment variables in the Heroku admin panel, which is what I just showed a minute ago. So once you have all these set up, you'll get those from your own configuration screen. You'll have to go into Heroku and look for the database connection string, and then you can break it down and fill in these individual parameters like CBDB name, CBDB username, the password, the host, add a secret of your own, and the CB API host is supposed to be 0.0.0.0. So you need to add in all those parameters. The Chartbrew will not work unless you get these parameters set up and named exactly like this and have them match your own database configuration from your Heroku account. The next thing I wanted to mention was here, the default stack that Heroku is running on. Sometimes depending on your needs, you may need to change it. So I just kind of showed here a command that you can run. If you wanted to downgrade to a slightly older version of the Heroku stack, you can just say set Heroku-20 if you needed to go back to an older version such as that. If you run the Heroku stack command, you can see the versions that are currently available. So here we have a Vercel screen for my project for my front end of the Chartbrew dashboard that we saw in a previous video. When I was originally configuring the project, these were some of the defaults, so I went ahead and changed the framework preset and the root directory. And then here is the configuration of the project. I chose Create React App, as you can see here, and I set the directory to client. That's important so that it knows where to pull the code from in the mono repo. There's the client folder and the server folder, which I did mention previously. And then you have to add some environment variables. This is how you do that. You add in the name and then the value, which is a pointer to your back end of this dashboard. And then you click add. When you're done with all of that, you can click deploy, and that would run the deployment of the front end to the Vercel cloud provider. This screen just shows basically that it's going ahead and deploying because I had set up everything properly, and a lot of information scrolls by, as you can see, when you're watching the deployment happen in real time. When that process is finished, you should see a screen such as this. The congrats screen that says, hey, you just deployed your new project to Vercel. And here on the left side, you can see basically what amounts to the new login screen. Since there's no accounts in the Chartbrew dashboard system at this point, it wants you to go ahead and create your first one. So that's what that screen is to be used for. If we scroll down, we can see here creating the first account in the Chartbrew backend. And so it asks for basically a name, an email, and a password, and then click continue. So in doing this, you're setting up your first admin account in your self-hosted Chartbrew dashboard system. And once you've done that step, it will take you to this new screen that says, hey, we need you to create your first Chartbrew project. So you go ahead and give it a name, and at that point you'll have your basic front end, dashboard, and back end Chartbrew database and website and application all set up and ready for us to take the next steps. Then I created a new screenshot here that shows the Mr. Dashboard space, and it wants you to create a connection. Since I don't have any yet, that will be covered in the next video. However, for now, you can see you can create an API, which could be any API that's available on the internet. So you're able to connect to so many different data sources, whether they're internal in your company or whether they're external or free resources, wherever it's at. This tool is very flexible in configuring connections such as that. Once you have the connections established in this dashboard, you can start creating your graphs and charts to visualize your data. There's also community templates and custom templates that can be created. So there's a lot of useful things here in this connection screen. So next I'll click into the configuration for an API, and you can see here you would give it a name, you'd give it the host name of your API, and if you needed to authenticate, you can add in that type of information here. If it's an anonymous or public API, then you don't need to worry about that. And another nice thing is this test connection button. So before you even go any further, you can go ahead and test your connection to make sure it's working as you expect. If not, you can fix it right here and deal with any issues, whether they're your configuration parameters or if there's something wrong with the backend data source. This test connection button is very handy. As you can see here in this screen, we are on the connections tab. And so again, once you create your one or multiple connections to your different data sources, you're able to create graphs and charts. And we will be looking at in another video. We're getting towards the end of this part of the setup for the Chartbrew dashboard, front end and back end. So this was information I found on the Chartbrew website. I thought I would just list here. They are talking about creating some environment variables on Vercel, the host. So as you can see, if we scroll down here, it shows this variable name. And we also have to do something similar on the Heroku side of things. That would be where your backend for the Chartbrew dashboard is created. And I wanted to just cover a couple settings here. There is this build pack, which you have to add, as well as the Heroku node.js build pack. So once you add those two build packs, you'll be able to get the backend built if you have everything else configured properly. I also wanted to point out the project path and the React app _ client _ host. And that is pointed at the front end of the Chartbrew dashboard. You have to have these in here or the backend will not build. Especially the project path that works with the plugin I just showed. You have to tell it where the code is at in that monorepo for the Chartbrew backend, and that would be in the server folder. So that's what that setting is to be used for. Here's another Heroku screen. This shows what my current settings are for this application. Here you can see it's on Heroku 22. The framework is the subdirectory build pack and node.js, which is what I just showed, and your slug size and what is the GitHub repo that it's connected to, and actually the Heroku Git URL of where this code is located. So yay, at this point, if you followed along with these instructions, I hope that you have a running version of a Chartbrew backend database on Heroku and a backend application. And also the front end is now up and running on your Vercel.com account. So the last part of this screen here, I wanted to just mention some information from the Chartbrew website. If you go there, you'll see they mention if you require any additional help, maybe you want to chat with existing Chartbrew users, they have a Discord server that's open to everyone and you can join it. If you wish, you can just go to the chartbrew.com website to find this information. So at this point, we now have our Chartbrew backend running on Heroku with a MySQL database, and we have the front end running on the Vercel.com website, which is using the client code folder, and of course the backend is using the server folder. So with all that said, we have an environment now where we can take a look at the next step, which will be one of the last steps to use the Chartbrew STRAPI plugin. But it was really good to go through this. I hope you found it helpful.
If you like this channel, please like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new content.